So I've been playing Heizhou for a little bit, and I think I've gotten familiar to the point where I can give a first impression on him. And I think he's okay. He's not bad, but he's not amazing. He doesn't support the team as much as Sucrose, Kazuha, or Venti, and I don't think he has the same damage potential as any of them does. So with his normal attacks, with his like punching or whatever, it's okay. They run the standard ICD, but yeah, very you have to be very close to hit them, and it can be beneficial sometimes. I'll get into that later. His elemental skill deals a decent burst of damage, but the problem is that it it's too long of a cooldown. 10 seconds is far too long. I would have liked it if it was 7 seconds, and that would be a pretty pretty decent ability, but it's just a decent burst of damage, and that's it. It knocks enemies back, which is a bit unfortunate. And the good thing is that I thought that to get his stacks, declension stacks or whatever, you would have to hold it, but no, you get the stacks whenever you do a swirl. So if you swirl with your normal, you swirl with your burst, yeah, you get a stack, which is fairly nice. But it is limited based on your ICD, so it's still okay. It generates a little bit of energy, which is kind of nice, but not really that much needed since his burst is 40 cost. But speaking of his burst is pretty bad. Um, it mentions in his skills that it gathers, and to be honest, it doesn't gather at all. I Instead of testing him at C0, I just went to C2 just to see how much better the gather is, and yeah, his gather's actually non-existent even with C2. It doesn't have the strength to pull like slimes even, and it can't even pull hilly churls at all. The thing that it can only pull are literally items on the floor, which is a huge bruh moment. But yeah, I there's no reason to use his burst outside of just swirling, I guess. And yeah, it really sucks. And so one of the ways I see him in team building is either as a driver for Taser or as an on-field damage dealer. I think his cooldowns are way too long for him to be an actual damage dealer, because as mentioned before, his only source of damage is from his elemental skill, and that has way too much of a cooldown. And his burst is kind of garbage at damage too, even if it can't gather. And but at that point, if you're running him with Taser, it's not really Heizhou that's doing the work. It's like Beidou, it's Fischl, it's Xingqiu that's doing the work. So, but yeah, I think the best team you're probably gonna have with him is Taser, just because he doesn't deal a lot of damage by himself, and he does help Beidou a little bit, because Beidou does have a lightning resistant shred or electro resistant shred when you're close to the enemy. And one of the problems I have with Sucrose is that when I'm running Sucrose Taser, I'm usually a decent bit of a distance away from the enemy, so I don't get hit, and I usually don't shred the enemy. So yeah, I guess. But comparing Keizo to Sucrose, I think Sucrose is just way better. Sucrose has a lot more crowd control, since Sucrose can knock enemies up, or she can just get enemies to move closer to each other, which is very useful if you're running a swirl. Because Keizo, again, knocks a lot of enemies back with his elemental skill, so... And yeah, burst, no gather. Plus, Sucrose also shares elemental mastery a lot more than Heizhou does. Heizhou's like a flat 80, while Sucrose is 80 plus a certain amount of her own elemental skill. So you can get your teams to have around 200 elemental mastery. But yeah, Sucrose can share a lot more elemental mastery than Heizhou can do. And Sucrose can also generate a whole lot more particles for the team. Yeah. Compared to Kazu, I guess Kazu would be way better. He gives damage bonus, whatever, and a good amount of CC. The Venti max CC. Venti generates a lot more energy, so yeah. Heizhou is in a really awkward situation where he doesn't generate as much energy as someone like Sucrose. He doesn't CC as well as Venti or Kazo or Sucrose, and he doesn't support the team with as much damage as any of them really do. But I think he's okay. He's usable. Eh, He's far more usable than someone like Sayu, for example. And can you go wrong with him? Probably not. I don't know. He's okay. And and one last thing to mention is that one good thing about him is that he's not reliant on his constellations, meaning a lot of his power is already unlocked with constellation without constellations outside of talent upgrades. Now, this is a good and this is a bad thing. It's good because you have a lot of his power at C0. The bad thing is that if you get him at C6, his performance is very identical to C0, which is very unfortunate. And yeah. Yeah, so that's about it. If you watched it until at the end, thanks, and I'll see you later.